Hello to everyone at Hi-Res. I'm just giving you this little short video so I can go over the features of the rig that I'm handing you. I managed to get it down to 76 weighted joints. There's a lot of joints in here that don't have weight values on the skin cluster, so I think what I count without all the end joints and stuff was about 76. So just squeaking by that 75 maximum here. So I'm going to go over the basic elements of the rig. Most of the rig pieces that are going to control this are in red here. I got kind of a combination of a couple joints for specific reasons so I can zero out the rotations and use those joint orients, and mostly some nerve circles and things. So this is your master mover down here, and you can move around the entire character from one place to another. These are your knee pull vectors, and they can work independently, and they are also somewhat self-correcting, which means that if you rotate the knee, they'll rotate with the orientation of the knee. You can also see that we have a standard rolling foot setup, or excuse me, the reverse foot setup. So we've got a heel here. We can actually move from the heel and tap from the heel. You can also roll the ankle if your character wants to do something a little bit more unique or specific. We want to roll the entire leg like that, or from the ankle pivot. And of course we have our ball lifting. Although with a high heel, which I've never rigged before, so it's interesting to rig a pair of high heels. You really don't need to lift the ball up because it's already lifted, but you might want to stamp out a cigarette or something like that. Alright, so going up here to our midline. Now I've got some cloth stuff here. I'd like to work a little bit more on it. I got kind of a movement system down there with a series of parent constraints and weights that will kind of move that loincloth around with her. I'd like to have a little bit more dynamic action, to get some dynamics in there, but for now, I mean, at least it kind of moves with the body a little bit, and you can play around with it and see how it works. I've got a 3-waisted setup. I'd like to have more in the waist, but one of the problems is that I had that joint limit, so I wanted to keep it within that limit. You can also see here that the breasts, I have some IK on the breasts, and you see how the breasts are kind of free floating. Could do a little bit more on that. They're basically just using kind of a parent constraint with a couple of weights there that I'm kind of manipulating so that we get kind of a movement, as you can see, and they can move by themselves. We wanted to throw, they've got some IK handles on them, so if we wanted to throw around a little bit of dynamics on them, and I haven't weighted them heavily just to make them look a little bit soft, make the dynamics look a little bit soft because they want them to kind of move or delay with the body. Let's see, what else do we have here? One of the things that you might have noticed is when you're rotating the pelvis here, the pelvis control set, those arms are locked into the world space. I have a switcher on our arm controls, which we'll look at right now, and that switcher says torso space, and it's a 0 to 1. I could have done it as a boolean, I just ended up doing it as an integer. So now you can see that I can move that around, but also now that arm will follow the torso space, and you can technically switch it in the middle of an animation. I would highly suggest making sure that that's set before you do any animation stuff. This is pretty standard. I'm using bones here just so I can once again keep this to a 0. We've got some rolling on the forearm here, and because she has that brace, I kind of just kept that going with that forearm roll. You've also got a full suite of finger controls here. I've cut out the extra pinky just for our thumb curl here. And you can obviously play around with those to your heart's desire. Should be able to form any common hand position. I've got backwards and forwards. And you'll also notice that I use integers here instead of the 0 to 1 or -1 to 1. I use -100 to 100 just to avoid the whole float thing and keep it as an integer value. Alright, so another thing here, our pole vector. One of the things, I've been working on this perfect pole vector rig. I haven't got it down yet, but one of the things I hate is those translating pole vector locators back there that don't seem to really be able to animate very well because you're always trying to move them out of the way, and some small issue of translation makes some huge sweep in the pole vector. So I've got these rotators here based on some joints put into the space of the clavicle. So you can see I've got this nice rolling forearm, and I've got 4 bones in my arm twist. I tend to use 4 bones because I think it makes a really nice smooth transition here across the skin. So I really wanted to do something nice and use these 4 bones. In the legs I had 4, but I dropped it down to 2 because I knew we had this joint limit. So you can see I can rotate my pole vector, and it rotates, it aims the elbow in the direction that I'm rotating that. So it really makes it kind of convenient to know exactly where that elbow is going to go and not have to guess by translating that pole vector thing around. Also got some wing action here on my flap wings. So this forward motion, if you notice, kind of drops. I got a double hinge on that, so it kind of drops down, so we get a little bit of extra rotation on those wings just to make it a little more interesting looking. Let's move on to, let's see, went through our arm rig, clavicle. So here we got a clavicle node. I'm using an aim constraint here. So we can really, looks like we got a little skin weight issue here. I'll fix that before I submit it to you all. Really kind of move the clavicle around, keep the clavicle nice and soft. Enable the animators to use the clavicle motion if so desired and keeping it in that range of motion. Like I said, I got a couple skin weight things here that probably need to get fixed before I submit it, and the hair as well. Hair is a little bit of a challenge, a lot of hair there, a lot of skin weights going on with that. Let's see, so we went over the clavicle. Now I'm going to go over my face rig here. I've got a fairly comprehensive, if simple, face rig. I didn't use a lot of bones because I wanted to keep it within your margins there. So what I've got here is this face controller. Now this face controller has two things that are going for here. We have a head aim, so if I turn that head aim, let me just turn that eye independent off. Once I turn this head aim on, the head itself is going to aim towards this. Now the neck is not, so you're going to be able to move that neck independently. And we've got the neck controls here. So you can move the neck base. And I guess it's not going to allow you to do that while the head aim is on. So turn that head aim off. There you go. And I've got that neck base. Now what you're noticing here is those eyes are at a fixed point. So I've got this independent eye aim. And when I turn that independent eye aim on, let's just bring that, there you go. Alright, independent eye aim here. What that allows you to do is move the head around. Oops, I guess we're going to have to turn that head aim on. A lot of switchers, and these I actually did use booleans for. So now, here's our independent eye spot here, and you can see this. And let's just add it to the rig controls. So you can move the spot where the eyes are going to look, and it'll move independently of the head. You'll notice I got a little bit of the eyelid roll in there, so the eyelids kind of track with the point of focus there. And now only the upper eyelids, not the lower eyelids, for the reason that, of course, the lower eyelids, better set a keyframe for that independent eye look. There we go. So as we move this around, you can see that the eyelids track. And of course, if we have the head independently moving, it'll look at that spot. Now, if we turn that off and I say I want the eyes to move with the head, then the eyes will move with the motion of the head. So you can see it gives you kind of the ability to turn on this kind of nice lifelike action where, as long as you don't get too crazy with how far away those eyes are looking from where the head is. Let's just pop that back into the standard setup, the bind pose. And now I'm going to show you a few of the things here. We've got a nice face rig. Got all the Viziums here. I would say that they could use some work. I could use a lot more joints, I think, with the face, but I didn't want to go. You said you guys have a 12 bone setup. I usually do something towards like 20 to 25 just to get all these nice areas. And I've got this, I use a spline IK here, so we're just going to do a smile here. And there we go. See how it peels the joints away from the face and in the same kind of range of motion that the face would normally use with the muscles here, the zygomatic arch muscles here, which just kind of roll over the cheekbones. So that's why I tend to use this spline IK here, and it's kind of tricky to set up, but if you do a really good job of it, it can create some really nice effects. Alright, so now we got a few other things from, not all of them are perfect, but I think you could do a full vocal with this fairly easily. And once again, remember, I go all the way to 100 with these, which with that virtual slider is kind of a pain. So I think you've got a pretty comprehensive rig here. Now, one thing I did, and I'm going to submit it to you with the fixed version, is I blew up the mesh just so it would be a little bit easier to bind and set up and fix. and make certain parts disappear. So that's pretty much the entire rig. You've got a comprehensive IK system that allows you to position the joints pretty much freely. You've got your pull vectors, which should offer some nice convenience. You've got an X there. In order to aim that elbow with the pull vector, you've got a comprehensive face rig with the ability to independently track the eyes, or just boom, or move the eyes with where you're tracking here. You've got a wing flapping system. You've got some soft breath set up here, so they kind of should have a little bit of a delay, and I think that could be set up a little bit better with some physics, in Unreal if you guys are going to that. And you've got a comprehensive foot setup that pretty much gives you a total freedom of motion with the ability to use these pull vectors to aim that knee out. So anyway, that is the rig. I'm going to be submitting it to you tonight. Thanks for the opportunity. Have a great weekend.